Hello, it's Monday, January 15th, Dr. Martin Luther King Birthday of Service Day here at Sequoia. We are really very fortunate to have such a beautiful day to start this program, which started at 9:45 with information tables from all over, all right, Shasta County information resources. So valuable to have that. Then we came inside to the auditorium and had a great program, great speakers, dancers. We loved it. Everybody was about 230 people here. Then after that, we're doing the bell ringing, ringing bells for justice, ringing bells for peace, ringing bells for everything that Dr. King stood for. Community values of solidarity, unity, respect, and equality. Then after that, lunch provided by Asphalt Cowboys, prepared by Asphalt Cowboys, lunch prepared by the Cowboys and provided by Simpson University and the Wiener Schnitzel, all right here in Lebanon. We appreciate them providing us lunch. Then after lunch, we're going to have a prayer circle. We know Dr. King always prayed. He always prayed before he went in and out of the courthouse. So we have a little half an hour prayer circle. We have people from the community that'll be praying. Then after the prayer circle, we have the march, a big march, about 0.9 miles from Sequoia here, right, to City Hall, and then we'll be closing it out at City Hall. So this is the program that we put together today for the people to celebrate the birthday and service of Dr. King. So that's what it is. We appreciate you coming, and thank you very much.
Really? Truth and justice must be grounded in an honest confronting of our history. Such attention and recognition is essential to the work of social justice. Because of our focus on criminal legal reform, it is a reminder of how the legacy of enslavement echoes in our carceral and legal systems, as Brian Stevenson, Michelle Alexander, Isabel Wickerson, and others demonstrate so powerfully in their work.
Labor acknowledgement. We acknowledge the legacy of slavery in building wealth and power in the United States and in our region, and that our nation continues to profit financially from the exploitation of the descendants of enslaved Africans. An estimated 13 million slaves were forcibly brought to the Americas beginning in the 1500s until 1867. Another 2 million died while crossing the Middle Passage. In California, civic and federal institutions, transportation systems, and agricultural economies were built by enslaved Indigenous, Latinx, African, and Asian peoples. People who were enslaved and their descendants unjustly enriched their perpetrators while carrying the burdens of sickness, stolen lands and property, family separation, cultural destruction, and the denial of basic human rights. The legacy of these burdens endures in many communities. Our use of this acknowledgement is intended to remind us about and raise awareness of this legacy as a foundation for guiding our advocacy and partnership development efforts.
Good afternoon. My name is Leticia Guerrero, and I am coordinator in this region for SEIU Local 2015. We are a long-term caregivers union, and I'm honored today to introduce two of our executive vice presidents that are officers that traveled from many miles to be here with us today. But first, I would like to acknowledge some of our caregivers that are in this room today and thank them for the vital work that they do in their communities. If you could just stand, please. Thank you. And thank y'all. We have with us today Ms. Kim Yvonne and Carmen Roberts. Yeah. But our speaker for today is Ms. Carmen Roberts, and I'm going to let her share with y'all. Oh, there she is.
Thank you, Leticia. Hello, Redding, Shasta County, beloved community members and guests. I am so elated to be able to spend Martin Luther King's birthday with you, and most honored to be able to speak with you today. When Jacqueline first asked me to speak, my first inclination was to decline. Not because I didn't want to speak, but I didn't think I had enough knowledge to speak about Dr. Martin Luther King. My reticence quickly disappeared when I saw the theme of this year's event, shifting the culture through the study and practice of Kingian nonviolence. I then realized who but me should speak, because I am the recipient of culture shifting. I'm now honored to to represent SEIU 2015 as an officer in the organization, the first rank and file member to hold this position in this local. But you know, this appointment didn't just happen. It required a great shift in 2015's culture and a group of courageous people to defeat and right an injustice. Not sure if any of them were aware of Martin Luther King's principles of nonviolence, yet they unknowingly practiced two of them. One, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people, and nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice and evil, not people. I should not have been surprised, because it would take courageous leaders to represent this union local of very courageous people, and that's long-term caregivers. I'm now going to talk about caregivers. Caregivers represent love, compassion, trust, grit, strength, forgiveness, friendship, courage, and faith. All of these traits allows them to care for the most vulnerable in our society, the aged and the disabled, while fighting for dignity and justice for all. These same traits embodies all of the six of Dr. King's nonviolence principles. Dr. King may have been thinking of caregivers when he spoke of nonviolence, when he said that we will not get the justice we need without practicing nonviolence. And perhaps caregivers listened to Dr. King somehow, because they practice nonviolence principles as they fight for justice. They are perhaps working and doing the work to reclaim Dr. King. Caregivers know that the time is always right to do what is right. What's right now for them is to continue to dismantle the status quo of economic imprisonment, or what I like to call plantation capitalism, by changing legislation, lifting and raising their voices, and by civil disobedience if necessary. They know that without economic justice, there is no racial justice nor social justice. Caregivers will continue to do the work to reclaim Dr. King and refine our democracy by using nonviolent methods to work against the shackles of poverty and attempts to silence their voices, by lifting up and fighting for economic, racial, and social justice for all. Caregivers will reclaim Dr. King and will shift the culture by practicing the Kingian nonviolence principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carmen. We are going to witness the dance group, the Ballet Folklorico, next. But before we go any further, we have a group of foreign exchange students that I'd like to acknowledge. If you all will stand. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Mary Bell.
Welcome all. My name is Maribel Torres. I work at Red Bluff High School, and 23 years ago, 4 individual students got together and formed a group, unbeknownst to the teachers, after school, in the gym, kind of hidden, and we're teaching each other how to dance old traditional songs from Mexico. Those 4 students, for 4 months, went around Tehama County performing these old traditional folk songs, kind of hidden from the teachers and the school board. It wasn't until one day we were at a Cinco de Mayo celebration, and we introduced ourselves as the Red Bluff High School Ballet Folklorico team. The principal was right there. And he's like, when did this happen? 4 months ago. I was one of those original members. From that group of 4, we became a group of 15 of all different colors, shapes, ethnicities, sexual orientation. We were a mix. Mexico, the word mex means mixed bloods. We are a mixed blood of all different European countries, all different places around the world. Our skin tone says it. So here I am, 23 years later, working at the same high school that I went to, and 6 years ago was given the opportunity to continue on my legacy that I started with 3 of my friends. And so today, I share with you my group. I'm very proud of this group. This was my long dream of doing what I wanted forever, was to just dance. I was maybe 2.5 feet too short to join the Rockettes in New York because I'm not 6'2", and I'm only 5'2". But this group has completed a dream that I never thought possible. Because of my culture, because of my ethnicity, I was supposed to bear children and be at home and be with a husband. Well, I did have a husband and I did bear children, but I can still teach and I can still dance and I can do it all, right? So today, I share with you my mezcla, my mestizos, my mixed bloods, my group of ballet folklorico students. They are of African American heritage. They are American. They are Cambodian. I have some Japanese. I have some German. I have some French. So as we continue to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, he has definitely ingrained a lot of unity in us, even at this age. Even though these students don't know very much about him, we do know that he wanted to unite. So I share with you our culture, our history through music. Thank you.
Next person to grace the stage is going to be Miss Laurie McNeil. We'll let her come in her own way. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm thankful to be here with all of you celebrating the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One of my favorite musical artists had a big role to play in creating the federal holiday, and that's Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder, if you don't know his happy birthday song, you should look it up. He wrote that song to advocate for a federal holiday honoring Dr. King. And the song includes the lyric, "Why has there never been a holiday where peace is celebrated all throughout the world? The time is overdue." He released that song in 1980, and he was right. It was overdue at that time. So he played his role in establishing the holiday at a federal level, and it's my joy to be gathered here on this holiday, joining in what has become that celebration he envisioned all throughout the world, lifting up the legacy of Dr. King, a man whose life is a masterclass in creating social change through the practice of nonviolence. This remarkable life that we are celebrating today began on this day in Atlanta, Georgia in 1929. And at the same time, about 2,600 miles west and a little north in Reading, here, the community was in its own infancy. When Dr. King was born, people here in roughly 45 acres adjacent to what we now call the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park and Center, people were just starting to create the community that would, just a tragically short 39 years later, insist that their community center and park bear the name of a remarkable, globally renowned slain leader. I was invited to speak to you all today because of work that I'm doing to tell a story about that community. It's a story that would look a lot different were it not for what Dr. King described as the three evils plaguing human societies. Those were poverty, racism, and militarism. During the early years of growth of part of what we now call the MLK neighborhood in Reading, the land there was considered to be the outskirts of our city. In 1928, Reading had just opened up its new city dump, just west of that area. The land was cheap, and if you were poor, it was a place you could buy a place to live. And so it probably comes as no surprise then that also, if you were not white, it was an area where it would be easier for you to get a place to live. So then if we fast forward about 30 years, what do we start to see being said about that area? Reading now has a ghetto. And that was what it was called in polite company. There were worse names. Perhaps in your mind, you can envision today's MLK Center and its surrounding neighborhood. Perhaps you can picture in your mind right now a map of the area. You can be on Sheridan and turn onto West Street and see houses looking down Logan Avenue, Linden, Eugenia, and so on. So I was quite surprised to learn through word of mouth that a significant portion of the neighborhood that existed when the MLK Center was built ceased to be there by just a few years later. Predominantly Black families, a Black community, a Black church, all gone from that place. And I was curious about this, and so I did what we do in this day and age when we are wanting to check on something that sounds crazy to us, right? I Googled it. And that's when things got a little dark for me, because I did not find anything. And when I asked some locals about it, it was news to them. As I learned more and reflected on the impact, I became upset, offended even. How is it that we all don't know, or at least get curious about why Reading, of all places, has a center named after Dr. King? Why is it located where it is? And worse, we don't even realize that there's something important missing from the narrative we carry about our own hometown, from our cultural climate. And I thought someone should do something about this. And I'm sure you know the feeling, that feeling of seeing people struggling, seeing injustice, seeing the violence in the world and thinking, my God, someone should do something about this. And here comes the uncomfortable part. Because in the midst of me being upset and offended and outraged on behalf of the erased, that darn small, still voice said, yeah, you should do something. It starts with me. That's the theme and the call for today. Acting on that may seem daunting, but it's not really asking much. Not if you remember that it doesn't end with you. It's not all on you. Dr. King's work didn't end with him, and he wasn't alone in the fight. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was passed after his assassination, and that legislation was part of his fight against the policies and discriminatory practices that, in part, were responsible for creating Reading's so-called ghetto. While my project started with me, quickly a network emerged of other people who care, local historians, technical experts, community elders, and people who bore witness to that dismantling of a community. Evidence of shifting the cultural climate through the study and practice of Kingian nonviolence definitely appears in a lot of different ways here in Reading. And personally, where I'm starting is with a realization that I came to through this work, that naming a place in Reading or anywhere after MLK was not some type of ghetto rebrand campaign, but an act of empowerment, resistance, hope, and a push towards creating a beloved community. And that effort was put forward by a community that we should all be proud to have had here, and whose story we absolutely must preserve. So we all have a part to play, and I look forward to experiencing the changes in our cultural climate here that are to come. And we'll start with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. Now we will hear from the Office of Education, the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Mike Freeman.
Good morning, everyone. It is a fantastic opportunity to be here today. My name is Mike Freeman, and the other day, in my role as Assistant Superintendent with the Shasta County Office of Education, I had the opportunity to sit down in a one-on-one meeting, my first one-on-one meeting with Mr. Eddie McAllister. It was a beautiful conversation. It was a long overdue introductory conversation where somewhere in the middle of solving all the world's problems, he slipped in an invitation to be a part of today's program. I jumped at the opportunity. Something, at the risk of oversharing, I want to share something my mom wrote in a letter once. Thank you. These are crazy times, right? The world can get a little crazy, and every once in a while you need to turn to a letter that your mom wrote to find some direction. One line: just remember you can't save the whole world, but you can save your little corner of the world. And you can't fix everything. I know, I've tried. I love that. I love my mom. And I see this as an opportunity to come together as a community and to expand that corner of my world. I'm honored to be here today to represent our Shasta County Superintendent, Judy Flores, and the Shasta County Board of Education, to honor the life and contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King and to share a few thoughts on this special day. I love what has been shared. Baile folklorico, you are a tough act to follow. I love the idea and the theme that it starts with me, and I want to learn. I want to be in places where I can understand other people. I want to do what I can to be a peacemaker. I want to serve. I want to build something that lasts. I want to be a part of a beloved community. You guys are beautiful people today. I want to change myself. One thing that I've learned about change, it's kind of a heart thing. We see something or hear something that makes us feel something that makes us do something. In my time with you this morning, I'm hoping that we can all feel something that makes us do something. I want to share two powerful thoughts from the life and teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that have found their way into my life, my personal life and my professional life. They've lit a fire in me, and I hope that that same fire it's already burning in a lot of us, right? But maybe, just maybe, we can rekindle it. These words that he shared I try to use to shape the way I show up in the world around me every day. The first comes from a speech that Dr. King gave at Cornell College in October 1962. He said this: "I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. And they don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other." I love this. This is more than just a powerful quote to put on a wall or a screensaver. It's a solution. A personal and professional belief that I have is the best solution is a simple one. It reminds me of principle 2. Nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. The result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation. The purpose of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. Division and distance is not the answer for the problems that we face today. It's proximity and curiosity. What if a conversation at the table of brotherhood really was the answer to many of our social ills that plague us? If it starts with me, what if I could go to a delicious barbecue hosted by the Asphalt Cowboys in a couple of minutes and hang out with people that don't look like me, that don't believe like me, that don't think like me, and I can get curious about them, and they get curious about me? What can I do to intentionally, if it does start with me, what can I do to intentionally create space for constructive conversations beyond today to build a beloved community? How can we change the tone of our current political reality and shift to a place of truly listening and understanding each other? That's what today is about. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us. The other one comes from a very powerful piece of Dr. King's work, Letters from Birmingham Jail. He says this: "You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You're quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such a tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks to dramatize the issue, that it can no longer be ignored. My citing the creation of tension as part of the work of the nonviolent resistor may sound rather shocking. But I must confess that I'm not afraid of the word tension." He finishes with this: "I've earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth." Yeah, not mine. It's his. I love that. We've made progress. We've made some progress in some places, but sometimes it feels like it might be one step forward and 2 steps back, or we're playing that kids game of chutes and ladders. There is a need to peacefully dramatize the issues that are before us. If there was a need in 1963 to remind America of the fierce urgency of now, how much more urgent is the fight in 2024? Now, I brought something this morning to help us all maybe imagine the power of Dr. King's teaching on a subject of constructive tension. And I'm wondering if I might have somebody from the audience who's feeling kind of strong today to help me out. Like if I could just have a volunteer, come on. Okay, all right, here we go. Round of applause. I just need the one volunteer. We're good. We're good. Are we feeling strong? Okay, strength. This is a resistance band. I just need you to hold it like this. Okay? All right, let's turn and face the audience so we can teach the principle here. What he's talking about with constructive tension, what are we using tension? We don't like tension. We have a human tendency to resist tension. We do it in one of 2 ways. First, give me some tension there. First, we'll change the top. We'll change the ideal. Maybe we'll say, oh, that's too ambitious. We've got to scale that thing back. And so we release and we lower it, right? And we relax. Or, we begin, we lie about our current reality and say, oh, it's not that bad. And we shift and create this false narrative that things are good. and we resist that tension. Thank you. Dr. King's lesson from Birmingham Jail and his principles of nonviolence teach us that the tension here is redemptive and if used for good can prove to be transformative. We must fight the temptation to paint an inaccurate picture of how things are right now. Stories are powerful and should be told to help others understand what is happening or not happening. Right? I'm at the County Office of Education. We have work to do, right? We must also fight to never be satisfied. You can hear his words, right? Never be satisfied until promising ideals like all men are created equal and free at last are actual reality. All that we want, love, justice, equality, is fruit that will grow when the conditions are right. When conditions are right, everybody thrives. Thrive is mutual. And justice flows like a river. Without compulsory means, it'll flow forever. We are gardeners. We are trying to patiently and diligently work to make those conditions right. And when that sweet day comes by and by, we will come together in brotherhood and we will pluck the fruit. And that will be sweet. Ernest Hemingway said this: every man has two deaths, when he is buried in the ground and the last time someone says his name. In some ways, men can be immortal, he finishes. Today, it starts with us to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Say his name, right? So that his legacy will live on. It starts with us to look around and do what we can to contribute to the cause, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. 1963 was not an end, but a beginning. And the next chapter in the history of justice and equality starts with me. Thank you.
Let's say that name. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you. We will now hear from our keynote speaker, Jonathan Freeman.
All right, we're still morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I want to change this mic up here a little bit. So Mike Freeman and me, no relation. Just sharing space together, and a little bit of a coincidence of the agenda today. My name is Jonathan, and I'm part of a circle of people who make up the Native Roots Network. We do our work focused mostly here in Wintu land, Pit River land, Yana land. I want to name those people. They often are erased as well. I was asked to share a little bit about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today. If you know me, you know that I search for context. I search for the connections. This year's theme includes the practice of study. And so I hope today, to spark a few points of study, of interest for everyone here. And that's just not of King, but of King's work in the world around King. Before I start, I want to thank the people who planned this event and all the people who planned the events prior to this one. There's long meetings in the evenings, during the day, volunteering time, energy, and love. And this is what love looks like when it's made visible. So thank you. I speak before you at a critical moment in America's history. We are nearing a precipice. It is like we are teetering on the edge of a knife. The craziness of our local politics is a harbinger of what might lie ahead. There's a lot of folks who joke that we're stuck, somewhere in the past. But I would argue that we could be potentially already 3 to 4 years ahead into a potential dark future of America. Developing a greater understanding of King today through study may help us prevent our fall. or at least provide us instruction on how to fight against the gravity if we are to go over the edge. Before I get into it all, I would like to name my inheritance to be able to speak on King in a way that I will today. My claim to be able to share today as a lighter-skinned dude, speaking about a prominent Black leader, a member of the Black diaspora. Part of my family line is from that same diaspora. And specifically, I name my grandmother, a Black woman who was born in a tent in a migrant farm working camp in Blythe, California. And she plays her own part in the civil rights arc and efforts to achieve social and racial justice throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. I hope by mentioning her here now that I can activate just a little bit of that DNA that's inside my body, that's hers, inside my bones, some of her power, her fortitude, and her strength. I can feel her. King. When we celebrate King, we often get a King story that shows up almost like the original Star Wars trilogy. A New Hope, where we meet King with Rosa Parks in 55, the Montgomery bus boycott. Then there's The Empire Strikes Back, with the ugly racists at the lunch counter sit-ins, the peaceful, nonviolent marches that are being met with ugly police fire hoses, dogs, and Billy stick violence. And then magically, we're in Washington, D.C., 1963, making a glorious speech in front of thousands of people about a dream, followed by the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the victorious Return of the Jedi. A beginning, a challenging middle, and a successful end. But just like Disney figured out, there's a whole lot more going on. And we know the struggle continues on into the next generations of freedom fighters. The dream speech. Well, not even all of the dream speech. Maybe just the last 4 minutes of the dream speech is where we mostly reside. And it is the King that has been trapped. It is the King that has been hijacked. And it is the King that has been most co-opted. How many times have we seen public figures, elected officials, and other public leaders who do very little to advance racial and social justice 364 half days a year? And maybe they actually even oppose it. Stand at a podium like this on a day like this and say some performative words about the dream and judging people by the content of their character. And then they disappear into the void. The bitter mist of xenophobia, racism, homophobia, all of those evils. I was just going to say, if you're here today and that you're feeling like that's some way like that's associated with you, I'm not calling you out. Well, maybe a little bit. I'm calling you in. I'm calling you in. We are all familiar with this small section of the speech we now call the I Have a Dream speech, which was actually titled Normalcy, Never Again. The entire speech was 17 minutes long. The dream was not even a planned part of the speech. The original speech was only supposed to be 5 minutes, and its theme was the metaphor of the bad check, representing America's failure to deliver on her promises of freedom to her Black citizens. A speech that we would say today was about equity. During a moment where that planned speech faltered, gospel singer Mahalia Jackson called out from behind, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." So Dr. King goes off script, and the rest is history. And maybe the only history many of us know of that day, or even of King. Do you know what was said before those final lines? Most of us don't ever get a chance to hear the beginning of the speech. We don't get to hear about the metaphor of the bad check or the lines calling for the urgency of now and warning us of the tranquilizing drug of gradualism, or heard the lines that he names the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Why were folks gathered in Washington, D.C.? Anyone know the name of the event? That's right. The Jobs and Freedom, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. In 1963, King was not loved for his work. Nearly 70% of the country did not approve of King at the time of the speech. This is just the same stat as a certain football player who took a knee recently at some football games. When you hear this section of the speech being used by a speaker as some kind of historical proof that we are now post-racial, or that King would believe or say that we shouldn't consider race or racism as an ongoing issue, or that we are now a colorblind society, question them. Oh. If they say King meant for us to judge a person's inability to thrive in today's world as something that is just lacking in the content of their character, doubt them, don't believe them. President Ronald Reagan, who was no friend to the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, nor King's lawlessness, also known as civil disobedience. He was the president who signed off on King's national holiday, who in doing so captured and rewrote the history of King to fit his own narrative, as King being one step along the pathway of America's exceptionalism, a historical king whose work was complete, paving the way to expunge the American system built on the crimes against humanity, over 400 years of murdering and dispossessing indigenous peoples, and the torture, terror, and unfree labor, enslavement of African people, stolen labor on stolen land. And this is one reason that labor acknowledgement that you heard earlier is an important addition when we begin these events with acknowledgements. The dream speech, this small section of the speech, is all most of us know. And when we look here only, we capture King. We lock him in a cell. We don't know his real work. We don't know the rest of his work. We, in essence, murder him a second time. Let's not do that today, okay? The dream speech, 1963, King is assassinated 5 years later by a white supremacist in 1968. He was 39 years old. Through study, you can find that King's work did not end in 63. His understanding and analysis continued to sharpen, grow, and reflect the world around him. When we gaze at King only through this small section of the speech, we don't get a clear picture of where King comes from, where he goes, nor even where he exists in that particular moment in the global freedom movement. In an interview with NBC News in May 1967, King says, "I must confess, that dream I had on that day has in many points turned into a nightmare. Now I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future, but I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. What changed? What was going on with King? What was he seeing and experiencing all around him?" We must see the world in which King existed. King is often plucked out of a seemingly invisible pantheon of change makers and stood up solitary on a pedestal. But King was not alone. Oh no, you heard it. King was never alone. One of the first contemporaries that we often hear about or see is Brother Malcolm X. And often we see these two contrasted as the good one and the bad one, or the reasonable one and the radical one. And this reflects a particular perspective and telling of history and of the story. Maybe not fair and maybe not accurate. But Malcolm is only one. There were many more, many more. We have to see King as part of a continuum. He is one of many heirs to a long tradition of freedom fighters, advocates, visionaries, champions, all part of the Black radical tradition. And this history of their efforts to create a country where justice and freedom could be realized. Names like the brilliant Nat Turner, the fierce and wonderful Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ella Baker, intelligent, fierce, and in the face of so much oppression and hate, stood up with love, unyielding in their quest for justice. Their names, their stories should be as present in our consciousness and on our tongues as kings. And they don't teach us about this. Study. There were brave, strong women like Mamie Till, who in August of 1955 insisted on an open casket funeral ceremony for her 14-year-old baby, her son, so that the world could see the horror of the torture and lynching that took his life and that was taking place in the South with wicked impunity. Rosa was stood on her bus seat in December 55. The same year, these sheroes and heroes were connected. Don't you ever think that King was alone.
Thank you so much I was so surprised when Jackie invited me once again to, it's been a long time since I've been here to sing or participate or anything, so I'm just really happy about today. And it starts with me. That is the theme of the day. It starts with me. So we have to hold on and do all that we can to make that dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. come true, because there's lots of work still to be done. Amen? So you guys pray with me as I sing this song. She requested Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did His grace appear the hour I first believed. Then I like to say, praise God, 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 praise God. The hour
first believe. Hallelujah.
There we go. Turn it up, DJ. Happy birthday, Dr. King. Yeah, there you go. Hey, happy birthday, Dr. King. Guess what we're here to do? Celebrate the birthday of a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Oh yeah, there you go. I'm your closer. I'm gonna close this out for you. Yeah. Come on over here stage, girl. Yeah. All right. You ready? All right, here we go. Happy birthday. Take it. Take it.
Good morning. This is Ruben from TV4 Star. We are here at this event at Martin Luther King in Redding, California, and we are pleased to have here a Marjit that he's representing beloved community, and he can tell us a little bit more about this event.
This is a great event by the Shasta Beloved community and the local Black community organizations to bring and to arrange Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration at Sequoia School. So I can see the diversity. That was one of Dr. King's 7 principles of nonviolence, which can bring the communities together and teach about the cohesion and compassion and love and fraternity for everyone.
Well, Majid, we see that this is a very good event, and also the response of the community is very good. We see a lot of the community coming and representing all the community in here in Reading, and we see a very happy people here. Everybody's enjoying. And what is next here, Majid?
Actually, we just finished the speakers inside the main square gymnasium hall. So now people are lining up for the free community food. That's the most essential part of the beloved community's outreach, how to connect the community through food.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have to enjoy the dinner now, the lunch. And thank you very much, Amarjit. Thank you very much, Martin Luther King and Eddie McAllister and all the people here who invite us and to be part of this.
Hello, everyone. This is Myra Monarch with TV First Star, and we are here at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration in Reading. We have had a wonderful event, great speakers. Just look around, the place is full of wonderful information. And we have here Dr. Paul Danuka. He's going to tell us what he thinks about the event. We're so glad that you're here today.
Thank you, Mara. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was meant for each and every person in this world, irrespective of their background, their color, their religion, their race, their economic background. And that dream basically was, in simple words, in my opinion, was that everyone is equal, everyone has equal dignity, and they have the ability to be what they want to be and to do what they want to do, and they should have the freedom. So we all need to celebrate that, and it's a dream for entire humanity. So we are honored to be a small part of that.
Thank you. What do you think of those beautiful words? Dr. Danuka is someone who I've identified with for a very long time, and we're just so thankful that you're part of this wonderful event supporting it. Thank you. And then we also have here Bernie with Shasta Community Health Center. Bernie Gutierrez. What do you think about this event so far? And tell us about the Shasta Community Health Center.
Sure. I think it's a wonderful event. It's been great. I've been part of this for the last 5 years myself, and we're very fortunate to have the speakers and the dancers here today. We believe that diversity and inclusion here is an important factor that our clinic has been able to assist and be part of this fabric of community efforts. So we want to thank you. We look forward to having you involved.
Thank you so much, Bernie. We're so excited that this events like these take place. We really needed. We have one more person that we'd like to introduce, a wonderful supporter of this event. His name is Armajit Singh, and he's going to tell us about what he thinks about the event and who are you representing?
I'm representing the Sikh Culture and Education Center from Anderson. So this event is Shasta County Beloved Community and the local Black community has taken a huge, effort to bring the multiculturalism and diversity on this event. So after the speaker's note, we are back into the gymnasium hall for the free food by the community for the community.
Thank you so much, sir. So glad you're here. It's an honor to have you here. Jack, it's so good to see you again. Good. Thank you. So glad you're here. This is Jack. He's with the Ready Rancheria. So happy, so honored that you're part of this wonderful event. Tell us about yourself. Tell us what this event means to you and what we need to do to carry it forward.
So I'm Jack Potter Jr., Tribal Chairman of Redding Rancheria. And it's always important that everybody, every nation, every color of people, every race, creed, sexual orientation, whatever, that we all come together and remember this day. Martin Luther King, he wasn't only speaking for the Black people, he was speaking for all nationalities, the poor people, and everyone. Even the white people that are poor and mistreated, the homeless and everything. He's thinking about those people when he was fighting, because we are all God's children, we're all equal. And we need to come together as a nation. When we do that finally, the world will be such a beautiful place. And that is why I'm always involved, because years ago when our people were having struggles, my grandmother in the 50s teamed up with the Native American community, and they had the tribal people's back. And so we've got to support one another and remember everyone has struggles in life. Everybody.
Weren't those words beautiful? And Jack is so right. We all need to support each other, come together. We are all one. So very thankful and very, very honored to be part of this wonderful event. We look forward to continuing to bring you more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. And we got more coming. So stay tuned.